The living Buddha of Gold Mountain that I know, the top of his head shines like a mirror, the 2 cheekbones are exposed, 2 eyes have a peculiar luster, medium build, the body and bones are particularly thick, the weight is like a 3-legged vessel. Legend has it that the living Buddha is skilled in martial arts, both hands are long, and palms are like soft cotton, walking without a certain pace, moving elegantly and not constrainedly, as if the wind is blowing willow. All year round, he neither wears a robe with large sleeves, nor does he put on a kasaya. He just wears a non-monk and non-Taoist, and long and big round collar shirt. 2 cuffs are lower than the knees. When he walks fast, his 2 sleeves flutter, light and airy like an immortal. But when sitting down, he never lowers his legs. If necessary, he sits cross-legged with the solemnity of a bell. The living Buddha is a human being. Naturally, his life is no different from that of ordinary people. He needs to eat and sleep but has another style. When eating, he has a somewhat brilliant idea. He likes to add some rust which is on the iron pot into the rice, mixed with his snot and saliva, and then delivers it to the mouth. That is a fancy and embellishment that he will not forget every meal. If you eat with him and don't have confidence in him, you will definitely vomit when you see his tricks. As for sleeping, he never stretches out his legs to sleep, but sits with his legs crossed and meditate all night long. When being drowsy, he just lowers his head to nurture his mind. Most amazingly, the living Buddha cannot bear to see melon seed shells, peanut shells, fruit peels, written paper, straw paper. Whether it is on the table or on the ground, as soon as he sees these things, he immediately grabs them with the claws like a dragon, and sends them down into his belly. His action is so fast that there is no way to stop him when he wants to play this trick. So walking with him is a nerve-wracking ordeal. Even on the street, he still acts the same style. While walking, his eyes keep sweeping in all directions, as if catching a bandit. His fellow travelers are naturally unhappy that he is performing this show on the street. Sometimes we pull and tug with him like a fight. If you say to him that the straw paper on the street is for people to wipe their buttocks with, don't do this dirty trick. He replies, what a dirty trick? What is the difference between filthiness and cleanliness? It seems that he hates written paper the most. He often grasps the written paper and says to himself, you are the one who has given rise to so many disputes, which make people upside down and commit sins. He does not like the written paper at all, and there is a funny story that happens to him in Yangon. When he was living on the Great Golden Pagoda, his disciple at home, King Yun Chen, a Yangon overseas Chinese leader, wrote a note one day. He asked an elderly lady, also a disciple of the living Buddha, to send it to the living Buddha, asking him to come to his home for offerings. When the living Buddha opened the envelope and saw the paper, he slapped the elderly lady in the face. The elderly lady got the slap and felt sad, but thinking that he was the master, and there was nothing she could do. The living Buddha said after the slap, why do you have to write this thing just for eating dinner? Coincidentally, the elderly lady just had a toothache. After receiving that slap, her teeth surprisingly stopped hurting. She happily worshipped the living Buddha as she was leaving. After returning home, she said to everyone, Master is so merciful that he has cured my toothache by slapping my face. Hence, this interesting story has gone viral. The living Buddha has a different habit from others. If you invite him for dinner, don't say veggie chicken, veggie duck, veggie fish or veggie ham. When he hears those names, he won't touch his chopsticks, preferring to eat white rice only. People explain that those are made of bean curd peel, not real chicken, duck, fish or meat, which are false names, no need to be attached. He has an inspiring answer. I am not afraid to eat these dishes, but worried about the killing and greed in your mind. If you don't have thoughts of chicken, duck, fish, and meat, how can you make these things? The words of the living Buddha are indeed profound philosophy. Since you are a vegetarian, you eat vegetarian food. Why do you have to make such figurative fake chickens, fake ducks, fake fish, and fake meat on purpose? This kind of thing is eating vegetarian food in the mouth, but not thoroughly abstaining from eating meat in mind. Furthermore, Mahayana Buddhism mainly focuses on taking precepts in mind. The living Buddha naturally likes people to eat vegetarian food. However, when he saw people eating meat, he didn't put on his face and lecture them, but just smilingly approached them and said with a joking tone, "Yo, you are eating your old ancestors." The way he taught people was so expedient that many people were inspired by his words and become vegetarians and disciples of the Buddha. Speaking of the living Buddha style of eating, it's also amazing. When he eats, there is no certain amount of rice. 3 bowls, 2 bowls is also a meal. If people offer him meals, he can eat, even if there are 8 or 10 bowls. He never says he is full, nor does he say it is not enough. He never refuses anyone who offer him meals, and he eats as soon as he is served. He is so different from others. Another virtue of his is that he does not seek wealth. Not only that, he simply doesn't want money and never uses it. The world says that money is a useful thing that can even help connect with gods. But money does not affect the living Buddha at all. He does not know what money is. If people give him banknotes, he will regard it as written paper and crumple into a ball and throw in his mouth and send down to his stomach. He has never used money in his life, as if he hates this thing. When it comes to the actions of the living Buddha, many things are inscrutable. Although he is a monk, he rarely deals with monks, but spends at least 300 days out of 365 days a year hanging around with laypeople, seldom stays at the temple, but spends the whole year hiding in laypeople's house. Together with male and female devotees, they chants, who chants Namo Amitabha Buddha, which is his only livelihood. Usually, it is not easy to find him at the Gold Mountain Temple, but you have to pry into his whereabouts from his lay disciples. When having an idea, he will leave immediately, as soon as he says so. And he doesn't want others to see him off. Sometimes, he even leaves without saying goodbye, and sometimes, he comes uninvited, coming and going freely, without worry nor hindrance. He carries nothing but a round collared rope of a particular style, plus at most a sorted handkerchief. When in the summer, he often wears a sizable cotton coat. When I saw him the first time, he was in this fashion, and a pair of long cotton socks, stepping on a pair of heavy cotton shoes. He does not feel hot, and his feet neither smell nor sweat. Instead, he wears only a thin shirt in winter, barefoot. People see his unusual action and feel strange. Nonetheless, it seems a routine for him and does not matter. There is one more thing that people would like to guess. The living Buddha is afraid of riding in rickshaw, human power car. No matter how far the distance, he usually insists on walking on both feet. Once in Nanjing, one of his disciples invited him for dinner. For showing deference to him, the disciple especially hired a rickshaw to pick him up, but he was reluctant to get on. The disciple desperately dragged him up. Unexpectedly, when the car was pulled and moved, he cried out in the car with a headache. During the ride, he kept shouting and screaming in the car. The disciple had no choice but to ask the car to stop. When getting off the car, his headache disappears. After that incident, his disciples dared not invite him to sit on a rickshaw anymore. Layman Gonglu, who asked me, "What is the reason for the living Buddha's fear of riding in a rickshaw?" I said, in the precepts, monks are only restricted from sitting in carriages or rickshaw for fun. But for the old and sick monks, they are permitted to ride on a walking cart, men's car, and male animal's car, but prohibited to ride on any women's or female animal's car. The living Buddha is not happy to ride in the rickshaw. Maybe it's due to his conscience, thinking he is a human being. Pulling the rickshaw is also a human being. He cannot bear to sit comfortably in the car, watching people run and sweat on the ground like cattle and horses. Maybe this is the reason. The living Buddha also has a habit. He does not like people to say compliments to him, that is to call him living Buddha. He is often unhappy about this title. He said, My name is Wondrous Virtue. From now on you can call me Wondrous Virtue. Do not call me Living Buddha again. When I first met him, I didn't understand his mentality. One day, I had the idea to write some of his inspiring stories and send to a Buddhist magazine for publication. It is only to show the evidence of the true practice of Buddhism and serves no other purpose. As I have written 2 or 3 sheets of paper, I occasionally look back and see him standing behind me, not knowing when he came into the room. The Buddha usually walks without hearing footsteps. As soon as I see him, I know he has a habit of grabbing the written paper and eating it, so I immediately hide the manuscript in my sleeve. He asks me, "What is it?" I squeak out a reply, saying that I am writing a letter. He doesn't believe me, and says I lie and asks me to tell the truth. Then I have to tell him honestly. Unexpectedly, I get into trouble. On hearing my words, he drops to his knees with a thud. Thus, it makes me panic. I immediately try to hold him up with both hands. However, I use up all my strength, but can move a bit. Further, his eyes seem to be in tears. He stammers, "You cannot write these things. People will not believe it when they read it, and they may even call me a demon monk, slandering the Buddha's teachings. Then I will be guilty." At this moment, I'm so moved by him that I have to promise him not to write, but he still doesn't believe me, kneels on the ground and refuses to get up. When Layman Gonglu hears that we are making noise in the room, he comes to see the living Buddha kneeling on the ground, and I cannot get him up. He is confused about what tricks we are playing, and helps me pull him, but he is still immovable. I prostrate myself to him, but he is reluctant to get up. To convince him, I have no choice but to break one of my beloved Earth brand fountain pens to convince him. He then climbs up and comforts me instead. "Don't feel sad, you have to know that fame is the root of hell. There are numerous people in the past and present who have been burdened by fame and beaten black and blue. How dare I seek fame when I am still vexed? I only wish to say the phrase of Amitabha Buddha truthfully. If the living Buddha were alive today and saw me writing about his miracles, I wonder how far he is going to annoy me. He is a man who truly surmounted the obstacles of fame and fortune.